A lot of people have asked me if life has changed since I finally got my Bugatti. And other than just being in shock that it's still there every time I walk into the garage, not really. Except for in one way, I get asked much more often for my advice to a young person. I never mind those kind of conversations, but they have certainly happened a lot more often since I got the car. I guess it renders me eligible to give social media life advice. And so I thought, for the sake of efficiency and giving it a little bit more deliberate thought, I would make a video today with 10 ideas that I live by, my rules for living, so to speak. And this is not the gospel, this is not even really that important. This is just me because somebody asked, and it may not have been you, and if it wasn't, I hope you still enjoy the video. I also hope that regardless, you'll support this video's sponsor, the Ticket Clinic. I certainly advise that you fight all speeding tickets that you get, because having somebody, a lawyer, show up in court on your behalf is the secret to helping to avoid costly fines, risk of suspension, jail time, all the bad things that go with a big speeding ticket. And the nationwide network of lawyers from the Ticket Clinic can help. They've got people in every state, even though they got brick and mortar offices in Georgia, Florida, and California. Wherever you get a ticket, they'll help you fight it with a local attorney, which is the way to get the best results. And so check them out at the link in the description below and support the Ticket Clinic, not just to get out of your tickets, but because they're a great and long-term supporter of VinWiki. But the first rule that I live by is something that you'll have heard me say lots and lots of times, and that is look like you won the lottery 10 years ago. And what that really means is that depreciation is the enemy of sustainability. If I, from an automotive perspective of my most recreational hobby, if I look like I won the lottery within that genre 10 or now 20 years ago, that means that the assets that I have aren't really depreciating. And in some cases, they're starting to go up in value. I knew from a very young age that I wanted to have the cars that were going to carry with them large car payments. But I also understood that if I am putting some equity and some interest towards this car and that asset doesn't go down in value, I am accumulating net worth. And so when I look at my net worth, I have to calculate it based a lot on the equity and the assets that I've had for a long time. And so if you avoid depreciation by looking like you had money a long time ago, rather than chasing the biggest, baddest, latest, greatest, coolest things, you tend to have a better long-term outcome. A lot of people ask me for entrepreneurial advice, and my biggest advice for understanding any business is to know two numbers intimately well, and that is your cost of customer acquisition and your lifetime customer value. If you understand what it takes for you to get a new customer financially, and you also understand how much value your average customer has throughout their time of doing business with you, you can figure out how successful the business can be and where you need to scale. Because then you know, I need to pay to buy more customers so that they can pay me this over time. That was a big struggle early on in the life of VinWiki, is that from an app download perspective, I grossly underestimated how much it was going to cost for us to acquire users. Now, of course, we acquire them mostly through the VinWiki YouTube channel, and that has been a very fortuitous outcome, but it still hasn't totally changed it because I don't have customer lifetime value in our totally free app. And so if I understood more about that, maybe I wouldn't have started it in the first place. But when I try to give other people advice on their businesses, probably that I don't deserve to be giving them, that is somewhere that I try to start. Number 8 is that the two rules of Cannonball really apply to the rest of our lives as well. The first of those is don't break the law while you're breaking the law. I try to say that before we set out on all these events. And what it really means is manage your risks by only taking one at a time. It's easier to manage those risks if you can just focus on not having a bad outcome from one thing without elevating the risk by having a lot of things that could go wrong. Now, of course, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, but if you're just speeding, it tends to be a whole lot easier to manage than if you're speeding while drinking, or if you're speeding while passing on the shoulder, or in a car that's otherwise illegal. And so most of the time you can get away with it as long as there's only one infraction happening at a time. The Ticket Clinic would tell you that as well. The second is, for Cannonball, you don't need a good time to have a great time. And that means the attitude that you take into it and the adventure and the journey are a whole lot more valuable than the time or the destination. And in whatever your journey is in life, focusing more on how you get there and what it feels like to get there and the people that help you get there than actually where you end up tends to be the recipe for a lot more happiness. Number 7 is that limiting competition is a lot more valuable than maximizing capability. So when I think about the way that I buy cars, I do it primarily by limiting the number of people that I might be bidding against. And that's generally from the circumstance of how the car is available. Either because it's in such a dilapidated state, such a terrible history, such an undesirable configuration, or just because the nature of how it's being sold through a government auction or through some stressed out circumstance or some guy that doesn't know what he's doing, that limits the buyer pool to just me in some cases, and that's how I get a better deal. For me, that's a lot more effective than having more money or being a better negotiator. Is just making sure that you're not competing against too many people. And generally, fear does that for you. Fear causes people to exaggerate or overemphasize the reasons that they don't think they're going to be successful at something, and in a lot of cases, that keeps them from trying in the first place. And so, it works for me. The next one is to tithe or give charitably 10% of everything that you make. For me, it's been one of the most important disciplines and ideas that gives me a healthy relationship with money. It doesn't mean that I'm not goal-oriented, that I don't want to earn more and do more and be more successful, but it helps me to understand that whatever I have is a gift from God, and it is super important to help people in all ways. And tithing is not just about the money, it's also about your time that you devote to charitable work, to helping others, to teaching others, mentorship and things like that. And I've tried to maintain that attitude in my life because it honestly just makes it all make a whole lot more sense. Number 5 is to remember the time value of money. As we talked about in the privilege video, a lot of the privilege that we can all enjoy in life is if we take advantage of opportunities early in life and allow those time to compound. One of the things that my father always taught me was about delayed gratification, that it was okay to not have everything you want right now, because not having it right now, saving and having discipline makes it a whole lot easier to afford it in the future. And that has really helped me in life. Of course, I look like I'm a totally self-indulgent and hedonistic, car-obsessed person, but at the end of the day, I have been content to wait, to save, and to let them come down to a value that I could afford. In most cases, the cars that I wanted them when they were new and much more expensive, and I bought them at the bottom, and maybe now they've gone up. But at the end of the day, being willing to wait to be happy is one of the most powerful tools in the toolkit. Number 4 is that being honest about your position is never offensive, and committing is the most powerful tool of negotiation. Even if you want to offer less than somebody wants, or you want to tell somebody exactly how it is, if you're honest and non-confrontational about the way that you share your position, everyone can appreciate that. Commitment in any negotiation is where you have to start. I don't care if you're committed at the dollar amount that I want or at the outcome that I want, but if you're willing to say, I'm going to make a decision today, then we're able to get hopefully a lot closer to my preferred outcome, meet right smack dab in the middle, so to speak. But I think so many people feel like the path to a relationship or the path to a negotiation or the path to a deal is to not commit to anything for as long as possible, make them say the first number. Anything. Just let people know what you'll do right now and let them let you know if that's all right. My primary rule of wealth is that true wealth is the number of dollars that you choose not to care about. It's not about how much you have in the bank. It's not how much you have in assets. It's not about your net worth. It's about having mental freedom from the stress of money. And the way that you do that is by choosing how much you won't get upset about. And it sounds reckless on the surface, but it has been such a liberating mindset for me in earning and accumulating wealth over the years. The higher I can make that number, and I have a conscious discussion with myself every year about how far can we push that number. And there have been years I pushed it too far, and I'm like, that was a lot more than I thought it should have been. But at the end of the day, I've never been mad for not caring about money, for not letting it upset me when it doesn't go exactly the way I want to, when something unexpected pops up, when something breaks. And so if I can continue to move that needle, regardless of what the rest of the internet says about my net worth, that is where my true happiness about money comes from. Number 2 is never lie. Of course, none of us succeed at that all the time. It's one of those things, sins that we've all committed. But at the end of the day, I have a tremendous amount of conviction to do whatever I say that I will. And if you tell someone that you're going to do something, make sure it happens. And don't make it a habit of saying that you'll do things that you generally are not going to be able to do. I think being honest and truthful and having a conviction personally to perform in whatever way you say you will is one of the most powerful things that a person can be, and one of the best ways that we can approach our lives. And so make sure it matters to you that everything that you say comes true. The final thing is easy. Keep God first. My relationship with God and my salvation through Jesus is the thing that makes the rest of life make sense. I know that the closer I am in my relationship with God and in my walk with God, the better my marriage is going to be, the better my relationship with my kids is going to be, the better my relationship with my audience is going to be. Everything only makes sense in the context that life is a gift from God. Heaven is only guaranteed because of what God did through Jesus on earth, and that's all that matters. The rest of it is fun. We're supposed to work. We're supposed to win. We're supposed to do some things that we do on this earth. But at the end of the day, none of that matters in the scope of eternity, and eternity only matters because of how much God loves us. And so that's how I live. I don't know if it's any good. I don't know if it's any value, but since a few of you asked, there it is. Have a great day.